bright idea was this? Hey, Gremlinicus, let's play a game. No thanks, Farticus. Come on, I spy with my little eye. I told you no. Well, I spy. Fine, what do you spy? Yeah, well, I spy with my little eye. Something brown. Wow, I wonder what it could be. Is it, I don't know, wood? What this entire horse is made out of? Nope. No, then what else could it be? Oh my Poseidon! Farticus, why? I told you it was something brown. Okay, that's it. I'm moving. I'm out of here. Get out of my way. Oh, man. Those are my new sandals. God, come on, Zeus, dang it. Oh, wow. There's so much room over here. There's even an echo. Who would have thought there'd be so much space in a horse's ass? Hey, everyone. It's Lord Gremlinicus, and I'm here today with another movie review. Today, I'm going to be talking about The Odyssey, which released on July 17, 2026.
After winning the Trojan War, Odysseus and his men embark on the long journey home. However, the gods are not happy with their breaking of Zeus's law. Thus, the journey is plagued with tragedy and mythical creatures that seek to prevent their homeward arrival.
Rated R.
My viewing for The Odyssey was on a standard movie screen. Not in 70mm IMAX, not 70mm super duper ultra cool IMAX, just a regular normal movie screen. That's because I don't have access to anything else in my local theater. While it would have been pretty amazing to see it in that format, most of my complaints about the film have little to do with the display. Instead, my issues come from the narrative and some of the visuals. Now, I am not an expert on the original poem by Homer. I have seen dozens of interpretations of it, from Troy all the way to The Simpsons. It's just one of those things that's always referenced. However, Christopher Nolan's version seems so disconnected from the mythology that it could have just been another generic war movie. I think calling it Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey would have been more fitting. There has been a lot of talk concerning this film, enough to fill up like 12 different videos. But I'm going to keep it restricted to the things that really jumped out at me while I was watching it. First, let's talk about the casting. And yes, I will probably butcher some of these Greek names. There's a lot of characters in this film, and most of them have less than 10 minutes of screen time. It feels like a who's who of current popular stars. Some work, and some don't. And to top it all off, everyone spoke with a modern-day American accent, even the non-American actors. I knew that this would bother me after seeing the trailer, and it certainly did. But it's not because of the historical inaccuracy. Traditionally in historical films, the actors use English accents, or what is known as the Queen's Latin. We associate the idea of antiquity with these accents. It gives the lines an air of pomp. The use of modern-day American English along with modern curse words kind of cheapened the feel of the movie for me. Some of the dialogue was just bad, like the most basic placeholder writing. Nolan said, as the film's screenwriter, that he wanted to prioritize language that has emotional, not intellectual meaning to people. To me, that sounded like he wanted to dumb it down for audiences, or at least fit that classic story more into his signature style. You might not mind it as much, but to me, it felt really out of place, especially when Matt Damon's Boston accent peeked on through. Matt Damon leads the movie as Odysseus. I think he was miscast for this role. For being the hero of the attack on Troy and the king of Ithaca, I found him very uncharismatic. His performance kind of fell flat for me. He never truly felt concerned for his men's lives, or defying the gods, or even his journey home. He talks about those things, but it doesn't really come off as genuine. And since he's the main character of the film, that's how the whole movie felt for me. We were being told that things were very serious, without any seriousness from the lead. Anne Hathaway plays Penelope, the wife of Odysseus and the queen of Ithaca. Anne did a good job with what she was given. Christopher Nolan is infamous for his use of women characters as a means to prop up their male counterparts. While Penelope does have more independence, there's not as much depth as I would have liked. Tom Holland plays their son, Telemachus. He's mostly there to look mournful, and Holland's good for that. When he finally gains some courage, it's not enough to really shift that character arc. I would have liked him to be a lot more forceful by the end of the movie. Robert Pattinson plays Antinous, the main suitor for Penelope's heart. Pattinson does a great job of being a weak little slime ball of a character that you will love to hate. John Leguizamo plays Eumaeus, a sheep herder and a close family friend of Odysseus. This is probably the strongest performance for me. Leguizamo plays the character like a real person. His honesty, kindness, and stern teachings makes Eumaeus a well-rounded character. Another good performance comes from Odysseus' second-in-command, Eurylochus, played by Himesh Patel. I wasn't even expecting to see this character because he's missing from most of the marketing and all of the press circuits. The subtle anger and disappointment he displays while disagreeing with Odysseus' orders was perfect. Zendaya plays Athena according to the credits, but is reduced to mostly silent appearances, uttering a few words here and there that Odysseus just can't seem to understand, or he's not willing to understand. Charlize Theron plays Calypso. She finds Odysseus and nurses him back to health. The role isn't really explained that well, and it's completely different from what you actually read in the poem. They don't really explain who she is, why she's on this beach, or if she has any magical or mythical powers. Charlize just looked like she was walking on a beach in a Dior perfume ad. It was a very similar treatment for Circe, played by Samantha Morton. People have been raving about her performance, and rightfully so. But her character feels kind of like a shadow for who Circe really is. I enjoyed her completely, but there should have been way more depth into her. But with Nolan's mandate of keeping things gritty and realistic, there just wasn't any room. Some other folks you may recognize are Travis Scott as the bard, who's just standing around in the beginnings, tapping a stick and saying a few random words. I think if he was going to be the bard, they should at least have him do a little rapping or something that's a little bit more sing-songy. Mia Goth plays a slave named Melantho. Ryan Hurst is the mentor. Benny Safdie as Agamemnon. John Bernthal as Menelaus. And Bill Irwin as the Cyclops. The two controversial castings of Elliot Page as Sinon and Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy and her sister Clytemnestra were perfect. They both did well with what they were given, and they barely appeared on screen. Both brought some very needed emotion to the film. The visuals of the film are nothing short of awesome, but somehow I still felt kind of let down by their usage throughout the narrative. Not to get into historical accuracy, but this movie is not it. The ships are more Viking in style, and a lot of the armor was made to look cool rather than accurate. And that is Nolan's signature. He actually talked about this in an interview. When he saw the historically accurate armor, he said it didn't really fit the aesthetic that he was going for. If you look at his previous works like Oppenheimer, Dunkirk, or even Batman, you'll see that lore accuracy is always secondary to his aesthetic. There's these sweeping ocean shots, these beautiful countrysides, and yet it feels less than grand. And no, it's not because I was watching on a standard movie screen. I think Nolan's technical style got in the way of allowing the camera to really absorb this natural beauty. That being said, Nolan did a great job of mixing practical effects with some CGI. For the most part, all of the cast had handmade outfits with natural fabrics. Unfortunately, it was all really plain to look at. They shot on location for a lot of the movie, and it was great to see. Though some of the locations were shown as already partial ruins, which seemed kind of weird since the story takes place thousands of years ago. Like Odysseus' castle in Ithaca. It looks weathered and old. There's a scene on the balcony area where the stones look thousands of years old, when in reality it should look much newer. It loses some of the grandeur that I was expecting. Some of my favorite visuals are with the Cyclops, one of the few mythological aspects of the film. The Cyclops was made with CGI, but with physical references from Bill Irwin. They even made a 60-foot puppet so the actors had a visual reference to act with. Plus, they filmed in an actual cave that has been inhabited for millennia. They made to scale human models for the Cyclops to eat that even had bones and blood in them. Though I didn't really notice any of that blood in the film. In fact, there was a surprising lack of blood throughout the movie. Which is weird considering the war that is happening. It doesn't have to be a gore fest, but I was just expecting a lot more, especially with the Cyclops eating people. The production team used jet skis driving around in circles as the base model for the whirlpool known as Charybdis. While the CGI on it looked good, the character had no effect on the story. The character was nothing more than some swirling water that they avoided. Then comes Scylla, the monster of many heads. Though in Nolan's Odyssey, it's reduced to some CGI meat tubes that snatch the characters off the boat. It was the most laughable effect in the movie for me. And of course, you don't actually get to see Scylla fully at all. The sirens were pretty much not shown at all either. The scene itself is still powerful and moving, though the threat is more implied. I mentioned earlier how Circe was expertly performed by Samantha Morton. If you know about her character, then you know what to expect. Kind of. Her scenes with the men involve some masterful practical effects, though the scene is marred by dozens of quick cuts that break up the visuals too much, and the later transformations are done off camera. All of this felt really well done, just not well intentioned. The Odyssey is a mythological story that relies heavily on the involvement of the Greek gods. And these gods are all but absent from the film. They are reduced to natural phenomenons. Zeus is only lightning and thunder, and Poseidon is the wind and some rough waters. Circe is a witch in a hut, and Calypso is a babe on the beach. These mystical elements are vital to the story, but Christopher Nolan removed them, instead focusing on the human side of the story. This changes the entire narrative of the film, because now the human characters have to be changed as well in order to fit into this more realistic world. Odysseus defying the gods feels a lot less impactful when the gods aren't really there. The 20-year journey ends up feeling like a series of unfortunate events, strung together between scenes of Odysseus on the beach with Calypso. Yes, these are his memories coming back to him, but there was a lack of cohesion. I found the whole thing to be rather disjointed. Odysseus would mention something and bam, we were there. But he didn't really seem moved by these recollections. Maybe that has more to do with Matt Damon's performance. He just didn't give that emotional gravity, and the fact that he looks 50 throughout the entire film and never ages up. I was disappointed with a lot of the fight sequences. The Siege of Troy was meant to be epic. 10 years of rage pouring through the gates, but it felt pretty tame. Swords clang, people get stabbed, not much blood comes out, and a lot of people get killed off to the side of the screen. The battle seems more focused on falling buildings than anything else. I guess I was just expecting a lot more gritty realism type of war. This trend continued through the finale of the film as well. The final fight sequence felt bland overall. Like, yes, there's fighting and people are dying, but the way it's shot really lessened the impact. Plus, the aforementioned lack of blood was even weirder since it was all hand-to-hand combat. I think some of this is due to the IMAX cameras themselves. As I'm sure you have seen from all the marketing, the Odyssey was filmed completely on IMAX cameras, the second movie in history to do so. While this is cool, it does come off a little gimmicky to me. The marketing campaign and the paid influencers are all trying to convince the viewers that you have to see it in the 70mm max type of screen, or else you're never going to really experience Nolan's true vision. This campaign was so effective that these showings were sold out over a year ago. There are less than 50 of these screens on the entire planet Earth, and only 25 of them in the United States. This is a manufactured sense of scarcity. Yes, the theaters are rare, but it's not the only way to enjoy the film. I can't believe that people are going to such extremes to see it in this manner. I know it's probably a great experience, but I don't want to have to take a flight to do it. But I think this reliance on the IMAX cameras actually hindered the film. The cameras are huge and heavy. They are also insanely loud, drowning out any dialogue. For the Odyssey, they actually made newer cameras and placed them inside of containers called blimps for sound dampening that weighed over 300 pounds and required multiple people to move around. This means that the cameras couldn't move as freely as a shoulder camera would. Nolan and his team developed a mirror method that would allow the actors to see each other even though the camera is right here. As you can see, the actors are on different sides of the camera, but can look at each other through the mirrors. This was vital for close-ups. The problem I see with this is that those shots are now static in nature, meaning the actors can't move around while they're delivering their lines because the 300-pound camera can't keep up. I noticed this throughout the film. Characters often felt a bit too stiff when they were having more emotional scenes. Like when Penelope's talking directly to her son, "I have been sitting on this throne for 20 years. She's giving this emotional performance, but she can't move her head the way a person naturally would." This can make the scene feel less impactful, even a little forced. Honestly, I didn't even cry in this movie, and I cry at everything. The only part that almost moved me to tears had to do with a dog. In the end, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey just didn't hit the mark for me. His adaptation removes all the color, whimsy, and mythological elements that made the original poem by Homer so epic. His obsession with making films that all have the same aesthetic really hindered what should have been a knockout film. This could have been a new classic that is talked about for decades. The technical aspects of the film are breathtaking, and frankly, some of them are insanely unbelievable, like burying dozens of stunt people under the ground in Iceland. Nolan's attention to the technical detail is unmatched, but it's too mechanically cold of a method for a story like this. When you make a film about gods and monsters, there has to be some wiggle room for unserious things. You can't boil down magic to desaturated, gritty scenes. And it's for these reasons I am giving Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey the not too epic score of 6.5 out of 10. This is not a terrible movie. In fact, it has some brilliant moments. But there's too much missing for me that prevents it from being the epic it should have been. The removal of the fantasy elements removed more than just the whimsy. It removed too much of the heart of the poem for me. But what about you? Did you see this new version of The Odyssey? If you haven't watched it yet, you ought to see it. Go ahead and leave a comment below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel because you don't want to break Zeus's law. Oh, looks like it's time to fight. Hey, Lazy Mondaeus!
What?
It's finally time to fight!
I am on break!
Well, we've been on this beach for 10 years. What's a couple more minutes? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the open seas.